Welcome to another deep dive, you guys. Today, we are going to be looking at James Clear's Atomic Habits
Oh, fantastic.
to explore, just how those small everyday actions can shape our lives, in bigger ways than we think.
Absolutely. And Clear, I think, takes it a step further by arguing that habits are like the compound interest of self-improvement.
Okay.
It's not about making these massive sweeping changes all at once.
Yeah.
It's about tiny improvements that accumulate over time.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire life overnight,
Yeah,
I should be focusing on making these really small incremental changes.
precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, think of it like investing, a small amount of money regularly.
Okay.
And at first that growth seems insignificant. You're like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
But over time, the power of compounding kicks in,
Yeah.
and the results can be impressive,
Yeah, it's so easy to get discouraged when we don't see results right away.
for sure.
I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah.
And I know Claire talks about this plateau of latent potential. Can you maybe break that down for us?
Sure. The plateau of latent potential, it really highlights the fact that, our efforts might not always be visible immediately.
Right.
And Clear uses this great analogy of an ice cube melting.
Okay.
You can apply heat to an ice cube,
Yeah.
but nothing seems to happen until you reach 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Then, boom, it starts to melt.
Okay.
And habits work similarly. We might be putting in work, we're building these positive routines,
Yeah.
but the results can remain sort of hidden until we reach a certain threshold.
So it's like we're laying the groundwork, we're building this foundation.
Yeah.
Even if we don't see, immediate tangible progress.
Exactly. And that's why patience and consistency are so crucial when building habits.
Right.
It's about trusting the process and understanding that breakthroughs often come after a period of sustained effort.
Okay, now I'm very intrigued by this concept of identity-based habits. So can you explain how our beliefs about ourselves influence our ability to, form these lasting habits?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that Clary argues that true lasting change comes from shifting our identity.
Okay.
It's about changing our beliefs about who we are.
Hmm.
So instead of focusing on just what we want to achieve,
Yeah.
like losing weight, writing a book, learning a new language,
Right.
we should focus on becoming the type of person
Okay.
who embodies those qualities.
So it's about aligning our actions with our desired self-image.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you want to become a runner.
Okay.
Instead
Yeah.
of just saying, I want to run a marathon,
Yeah.
you might start thinking of yourself as a runner.
Okay.
You embrace that identity of someone who runs regularly.
Right.
This shift in self-perception makes it so much easier to stick with that habit
Hmm.
because it becomes part of who you are, not just something you do.
Yeah, that's a really powerful reframing.
Yeah.
It's not about forcing myself to do something I don't enjoy. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally gravitates towards those actions.
That's it. And Clear highlights the power of this with an interesting anecdote.
Oh, okay.
He tells the story of a woman who quit smoking, only to pick it up again years later
Oh, wow.
when she resumed horseback riding.
Why is that?
Because horseback riding had been her primary smoking trigger in the past.
Oh, wow.
It was so ingrained in her identity as a smoker
Yeah.
that even years later,
Right.
the cue of horseback riding reactivated that habit.
So it's like our past experiences and associations
Yeah.
can influence our behavior often on a subconscious level.
Typically.
And it highlights the importance of understanding those mechanisms if we want to create lasting change.
Totally. And to help us with that, navigate this complex world of habit formation,
Yeah.
Clear provides us with this practical framework, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay. Let's break down these 4 laws.
Yeah.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Got it. And what's even more interesting is that each law has like an inversion that can be used to break bad habits. So make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
Okay, so it's like a toolkit
Yeah,
for building good habits and dismantling bad ones.
exactly.
Let's start with make it obvious.
Okay.
What are some strategies we can use to make those desired habits more prominent in our lives?
One very effective strategy is to use what's called implementation intentions.
Okay.
This involves creating a very specific plan for when and where you'll perform the habit.
Okay.
It's about removing any ambiguity and turning a vague intention
Yeah.
into a concrete action.
So instead of just saying, I want to exercise more,
Right.
I create a plan that specifies exactly, when, where, and how I'll exercise.
Exactly. Like you might say, I will go for a 30-minute run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in my local parks.
Okay.
By creating this plan, you reduce the likelihood of just relying on willpower or motivation,
Gotcha.
which we know can fluctuate.
Absolutely. So it's like taking the decision-making out of it.
Totally. Making it more likely that you'll actually follow through.
Exactly. Clear cites a study that found people who plan their workouts were more than twice as likely to actually exercise
Wow,
compared to those who didn't.
that's amazing.
It really highlights the power of being intentional and having a clear roadmap for action.
Clear also talks about habit stacking.
Yes.
What is that, and how does it fit into this make it obvious principle?
Habit stacking is brilliant. It leverages the power of your existing routines to build new habits.
Okay.
It's about linking a new habit to an existing one.
Okay.
So let's say you want to start meditating for 5 minutes each day.
Okay.
You could stack that new habit onto an existing one, like brushing your teeth.
Gotcha.
So every morning after you brush your teeth, you meditate for 5 minutes.
Right.
By linking the new habit to this established routine, you make it more likely to stick.
So you're piggybacking off of your brain's autopilot mode.
Yes, exactly. And the beauty of habit stacking is that you can create this chain of positive behaviors, building one upon the other. So we talked about making new habits obvious.
Yeah.
Now how about making it attractive?
Okay.
This is where dopamine comes into play.
Yes. The brain's reward chemical.
How can we leverage this knowledge to make our habits more appealing?
One powerful strategy is what Clear calls temptation bundling.
Oh, okay.
This involves pairing something you need to do with something you want to do.
Gotcha.
It's about linking a less desirable activity with a more pleasurable one.
So it's like putting a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down?
Yes, exactly. Let's say you want to start listening to educational podcasts,
Okay.
but you really only want to do it when you're at the gym on the treadmill.
Okay.
You could bundle that habit with listening to your favorite music.
Gotcha.
So you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite music while you're exercising and listening to the podcast.
Very clever.
Right.
Using temptation to your advantage.
Exactly.
Mm.
And Clear provides this really fascinating example with the story of the Polgar sisters
Okay.
who were raised to be chess prodigies. They learned to love the game intensely, partly because it was so ingrained in their family's culture.
Wow.
Their parents made chess a central part of their lives, creating this fun and engaging environment that fostered a deep passion for the game.
So it shows how our social environment can play a role in shaping our habits.
Sure. If everyone around us is engaged in a certain behavior and genuinely enjoys it, we're much more inclined to adopt that behavior ourselves.
Yeah, it almost becomes like aspirational in a way.
Exactly. And this ties into the idea of social norms.
Right.
We are very much influenced by what we see others doing,
Yeah.
especially those we admire or identify with.
Yeah.
So finding a tribe or community that supports your desired habits can be powerful.
So to recap, we talked about making habits obvious
Yes.
by using implementation intentions and habit stacking.
Yes.
We talked about making them attractive by temptation bundling and surrounding ourselves with supportive environments.
Yeah.
Now, how about making it easy?
Okay.
How can we reduce the friction associated with building good habits?
One of the most practical and effective strategies is the 2-minute rule.
Okay, tell me more.
The idea is to scale down the habit to a 2-minute version to get started.
Hmm.
It's about lowering the barrier to entry and making it as easy as possible to take that first step.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by a daunting task, I break it down into a manageable chunk
Precise?
that feels achievable.
Yeah. For example, if your goal is to write a book,
Yeah.
the 2-minute version might be to simply open your laptop and write one sentence.
Okay.
Or if you want to start a daily meditation practice, the 2-minute version could be just sitting down, closing your eyes, and taking 3 deep breaths.
So shift our focus from this overwhelming long-term goal
Yeah,
to the simplicity of the initial action.
exactly. And by making the starting point incredibly easy, we reduce the resistance and increase the likelihood of getting started.
I love that. Removing the friction, making it as easy as possible to act.
Right. Clear also talks about environment design.
Right.
So how does that factor into making habits easier? Environment design is all about structuring your physical surroundings to make good habits easier and bad habits harder.
Okay.
It's about creating an environment that supports your desired behaviors.
So instead of relying on willpower, we're strategically designing our surroundings
Exactly.
to nudge us in the right direction.
Yes. And Clear shares this fascinating anecdote about Victor Hugo.
Okay.
He struggled with procrastination and distraction.
Yeah, as writers do.
To focus on writing, he would have his servant take away all of his clothes,
What?
leaving him with only a shawl to wear.
Wow.
This made it incredibly difficult to leave his house. and succumb to distractions.
So physical constraints to promote certain behaviors?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in today's world, technology plays a huge role in environment design.
Right.
We can use it to automate habits like setting up automatic savings deposits or using meal planning apps,
Right.
or to make them more difficult, like using website blockers to prevent us from spending hours on social media.
It's amazing how much our physical and digital environments can influence our behavior.
It really is.
Now, for the fourth and final law, make it satisfying.
Yeah?
Why is it so important to make our habits feel rewarding, even in small ways?
Well, this ties back to the dopamine loop.
Right.
Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Yeah.
So if we can associate a positive feeling with a habit, it becomes more likely that we'll repeat it.
How do we make a habit feel rewarding?
One effective strategy is habit tracking.
Okay.
This involves creating a visual record of your progress,
Right.
which provides a sense of accomplishment and reinforces the behavior.
Okay.
Clear tells this inspiring story of Trent Deersmid, a salesman who used a simple yet powerful technique to track his progress.
Okay.
He'd start with 2 jars on his desk,
Okay.
one filled with 120 paper clips and one empty. For every sales call he made, he'd move one paper clip from the full jar to the empty jar.
I see.
This visual representation of his progress helped him stay motivated and achieve really impressive results.
That's a great example of how a visual reminder can be motivating. It's like a tangible representation of your efforts.
Yeah, and it taps into our brain's desire for progress and accomplishment.
Right.
However, Clear also cautions against becoming too fixated on just metrics and outcomes.
Right.
It's important to strike a balance between tracking progress and focusing on the intrinsic value of the habit itself.
Right. So it's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah,
between tracking progress and staying connected to the bigger picture.
exactly.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into these first 4 laws of behavior change.
Yeah,
We've learned about the importance of making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
we have.
But before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I want to hear more about those inversions.
Sure.
How can we apply these 4 laws in reverse to break those bad habits?
That's a great question. We'll delve into the world of habit breaking in part 2.
I can't wait. Stay tuned, listeners, because in part 2, we'll be tackling those bad habits head on.
Welcome back.
Mm.
So in part 1, we learned how to make good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
Right.
Now let's flip those principles and see how we can make bad habits disappear.
Yeah, I'm ready to get rid of some bad habits.
Okay, so remember, each of those 4 laws we discussed has an inversion
Right.
that could be used to break bad habits.
Okay.
So make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
So let's start with make it invisible. How can we reduce the visibility of those cues that trigger our bad habits?
Our environment is constantly bombarding us with cues
Right.
that trigger specific behaviors. So if you're trying to reduce your social media use, for instance,
Yeah.
having those apps on your home screen is a constant invitation to scroll.
So remove those tempting cues from our immediate surroundings.
Exactly. You can move those social media apps to a less accessible folder on your phone.
Okay.
You could even delete them altogether.
Well, cold turkey.
You could unsubscribe from email newsletters that tempt you to shop,
Yeah.
or even just put your phone in a drawer when you're working to minimize distractions.
It's about creating distance between ourselves and those temptations.
Yes, exactly.
No, what about make it unattractive? How can we view those bad habits in a less appealing light?
Here's where we have to tap into our cognitive abilities.
Right.
We can reframe our thinking about the bad habit
Okay.
and focus on the negative consequences
Right.
instead of the short-term rewards.
So instead of focusing on the temporary pleasure,
Right.
we highlight the detrimental effects it has on our lives.
Yes. For example, if you're trying to quit smoking,
Okay.
remind yourself of the long-term health risks,
Yeah.
the financial cost, and the negative impact on your appearance.
It's shifting our focus from the immediate gratification to
Totally.
the long-term consequences.
Exactly.
Now, how about make it difficult? How can we increase the friction associated with those bad habits?
Here's where we can get creative. We want to make it as inconvenient as possible to engage in those bad habits.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're trying to cut back on sugary drinks,
Yeah.
don't keep them in your house.
Oh, okay.
Or make a rule that you can only watch TV after you've worked out.
Gotcha. So introduce obstacles
Yes.
that make it less appealing to indulge.
Exactly.
Now for the final inversion, make it unsatisfying.
Okay.
How can we remove the reward associated with that behavior?
This often involves introducing accountability or a consequence.
Okay.
You could create a contract with yourself or a friend outlining consequences for engaging in the bad habit,
Right.
or even use a habit tracking app to monitor your progress.
So add a layer of accountability.
Exactly. And it plays on our aversion to loss.
Okay.
We're more likely to avoid a behavior if we know there's a negative consequence.
To illustrate these inversions in action, let's take mindless phone scrolling.
Okay.
I'm spending way too much time on social media. How can I apply these inversions?
To make it invisible,
Okay.
you could remove those social media apps from your home screen,
Okay.
or even delete them altogether, making it less likely that you'll mindlessly tap on them.
Right.
Turn off those notifications so you're not constantly bombarded with alerts.
To make it unattractive, I could think about the negative consequences. Decreased focus, productivity, sleep quality.
Totally.
Reminding myself that most of what I'm scrolling through is just curated highlight reels.
Exactly. So you're shifting your perception of the habit
Right.
from a source of entertainment to a potential source of distraction, comparison, and anxiety.
To make it difficult, I could place my phone in a less accessible location.
Yeah.
Like in a drawer or on a high shelf.
Okay, yeah.
Or use the downtime feature to limit my access to certain apps.
Great strategies.
And finally, to make it unsatisfying, I could use a habit tracking app
Yeah,
to monitor how much time I'm actually spending on social media.
that can be eye-opening.
Yeah, I could set a timer,
Okay.
allowing myself only a certain amount of time each day,
Boy.
or even introduce a consequence like donating money to a charity if I exceed my time limit.
Those are great tips. It's amazing how these inversions can be applied to a wide range of bad habits,
Right.
from overeating to procrastination to watching too much TV.
It's about understanding the mechanisms that drive those behaviors and strategically designing our environment and actions to make them less appealing.
We have more control over our habits than we realize.
That's a really empowering thought.
It is.
This has been a really insightful exploration of these 4 laws.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this episode, I want to know what you find most fascinating about Clear's work.
What I find so fascinating is that Clear emphasizes that it's not about achieving some grand overnight transformation.
Right.
It's about making small incremental improvements over time.
So it's the compound effect in action.
Precisely. It's recognizing that seemingly insignificant actions repeated consistently
Yeah.
can compound into these remarkable results. Remember that ice cube analogy?
Right.
Sometimes the change feels invisible until you reach that tipping point and everything shifts.
So even small changes, when consistently applied, can have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Ah.
And it's about shifting our focus from the outcome we want to achieve
Okay.
to the type of person we want to become.
That's interesting. Can you elaborate on that?
We often get caught up on the end goal, losing weight, getting a promotion, writing a book.
Yeah.
But what if we shifted our focus to the type of person who embodies those qualities?
Mm-hmm.
What would a healthy person do?
Right.
What would a successful entrepreneur do? What would a prolific writer do?
Okay.
And then what if we started acting in alignment with those identities?
That's a powerful reframing. So it's about aligning our actions with our desired self-image.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not fixed entities.
Right.
We're constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And our habits are the tools we use to sculpt ourselves into the people we want to become.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah, Clear reminds us that we have the power to choose those tools. We're not victims of our circumstances. We have agency. We can design our environment, our actions, and our rewards to make that change more likely.
It's about becoming the architects of our own lives.
Precisely. And it starts with that first small step.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits,
Yeah.
what's one final thought you'd like to leave with the listener?
I think it comes down to recognizing that you're not a finished product. You're a work in progress.
Right.
And your habits are the tools that will help you become the best version of yourself.
So it's not about achieving some fixed end point.
Yeah.
It's about continuous growth and evolution.
Exactly. It's about embracing the process, finding joy in the journey of becoming.
It's a good reminder that so much of our lives is focused on achieving specific goals and outcomes.
Right.
But what if we shift our attention to the process of becoming,
I love that.
to the daily habits and rituals that shape our character and determine our trajectory?
It's a subtle but profound shift in perspective.
And it comes back to those tiny incremental changes
Yeah.
that, when repeated consistently over time, can lead to big transformations.
Remember the power of compounding? Just like investing a small amount of money regularly can grow exponentially over time.
Yeah.
Our daily habits shape our lives in remarkable ways.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose those habits,
We do.
to design our environment, our actions, and our rewards to make positive change more likely.
Absolutely.
It's about becoming the architects of our own lives.
Yes.
As we conclude this deep dive, I encourage you to reflect on the habits that are shaping your life.
Yeah.
Are they moving you closer to or further away from the person you want to become?
And ask yourself, what's one small step you can take today to shift those habits in a more positive direction?
Even tiny changes repeated consistently can lead to extraordinary transformations.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those atomic habits that will shape your future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.